Welcome to Idiots Talk Sports. Our show is unofficially sponsored by 5 Hour Energy. Eric, what flavor are you on today, buddy?
I have the grape.
I went with the classic berry. Extra strength, of course. Today we are going to be discussing the state of the Ottawa Senators, their prospect pools, free agents, and where we think the team will end up this season. Maybe the worst tire fire in the league so far. This has been a horrible offseason for them. This nightmare kind of started quarter way through last season. So maybe one of the longest skids we've ever seen.
Not a good year for Ottawa.
Certainly not a good year.
Not a good offseason.
Not a good Mike Hoffman's gone. Now do you have to part out Erik Karlsson?
There's talks.
It seems like Carlson and Ryan to Vegas.
How big would that be for Vegas?
I mean, there's if you
can Vegas afford to pay both those guys?
Yes.
Okay.
If you want to get the most eyes on Vegas next year again, you trade Erik Karlsson.
And that would have to be a fun place for those two to play. Both being teammates in Ottawa, going to Vegas together, trying to pump up that new organization over there, as if you need to pump up Vegas anymore.
Bobby Ryan, career low shooting percentage last year, 9.6%, 11 goals. I think he's a super talented guy still. When he scores goals, they're either fluky or goal scorer goals. I mean,
right.
He's a real interesting case. I think
that's what Bobby Ryan does is score goals. That's his game. Like how we're talking about how Mike Hoffman, he's a shooter. He's there to score goals. Same thing with Bobby Ryan. With
James Neal leaving and David Perron possibly leaving Vegas Golden Knights, it makes a lot of sense. Even though that's $7.25 million, nobody wants to pay Bobby Ryan $7.25. Right. That's why nobody wants to take him. That's why the deal didn't go through at the deadline, they say.
So what do you think the chances are of Carlson and Ryan staying in Ottawa, not going to Vegas?
0 maybe.
You think they're going?
You know, I don't know that you can keep them at this point.
Okay.
And I think it's a good time to rebuild. You know, we're just dusting off on the prospects.
It looks like Ottawa needs to start thinking about that. Do it now or start thinking about that very soon.
They don't have their first round next year, and that's going to be huge for them. They need to, and that first round pick could be, if they don't do well this year, a lottery pick for Jack Hughes or someone else in the top 5, which would be a huge loss.
Well, speaking of their first round pick this year, Brady Tkachuk, what do you think about him?
He looks promising. He looks like a man amongst boys in the Devs camp.
Could bring some grit and toughness to this Ottawa team.
He absolutely could. We were talking about this earlier. I don't know if he's ready to start in the NHL right now. I think he takes another year or two in college. Mostly because he sees how maybe poorly this team looks right now and how it's not very bright. If you're a current Ottawa Senator like Mark Stone, which we'll get into.
I just wonder if we'll see him get any looks in the NHL this year, if it's possible that he would get called up for anything.
They're so competitive, the Tkachuk brothers, that I would not doubt if he just tries to beat his chest and start 80 games this year. So, literally, you don't know. And I think that's the cool part about Tkachuk. That's why he's the wild card. That's why I was very surprised Montreal didn't take him at 3. I mean, that would have been a huge upgrade to the attitude of that team. Made it even worse and harder to play against with guys like Gallagher. But with Ottawa, it's a really – they're in such a tight spot. It looks about as bad as any team could look.
Oh, it was such a sad year for them last year, too, after they had the playoff run they did the year before. And
Erik Karlsson was injured. He never looked the same. And by the way, he still had 60-something points.
Yeah. Well, he played injured throughout that whole playoff run.
The whole playoff run, and it took him a long time to get over that. He wanted to return sooner. He's the captain. I mean, and that's jersey sales. That's people buy tickets to come watch him play. I mean, he is a huge piece for them, and it's very upsetting that they have to look at getting rid of him.
Yeah.
They've got a lot of good young pieces in place. A Ryan Dzingel kid, good young American kid. Tkachuk, obviously.
Mark Stone. Mark Stone's only 25 and puts up good numbers.
But these are. Mark Stone is perhaps one of the faces of the franchise if he stays around, which they were talking about keeping him, and He could fetch you.
I think Ottawa has to keep somebody. That's the thing. Mark Stone's that guy they need to keep. I think that's how they're looking at it.
Duchesne and Stone are kind of like
Duchesne.
The two guys, the two veteran guys.
And you lost Turris last season, and then Hoffman.
Hoffman's gone.
And those were two key pieces right there. I think Turris had like 7-8 points in like 11 games. for Ottawa.
Turris looked really good. Honestly, he didn't look very good in the playoffs for Nashville, I will say. But Turris he's a competitor. He goes out there every night and tries hard.
Well, and Nashville's arguably a much more talented team than Ottawa is.
It's tougher for him to slot in. It could have been.
Right.
Only time will tell if that's a good fit.
Well, and Mike Hoffman was, I think, 3rd or 4th in points with 56 this past year, 82 games played, 22 goals.
Yeah.
So losing a guy like that, you gotta pick up some pieces somewhere. You gotta keep some. You gotta keep Stone. I think that's how they're looking at it there.
Stone is probably not as valuable to other teams as he would be to Ottawa, but you think that about Erik Karlsson. It all depends on what they get back. This could be a franchise-changing trade. The fact that they're adding Bobby Ryan onto it takes a little bit of value off, but we'll get into some prospects. This Shabbat kid is so good offensively. Super talented D-man. Doesn't throw a lot of hits. Isn't really the shutdown guy, but he's the guy that's going to slot in.
Bring a little offense
eventually
as a defenseman
to replace the void that Erik Karlsson will leave. Logan Brown, Colin White, big centerman. Drake Batherson has looked really good in the development camp. Really wasn't a high-profile, sexy pick in the draft, top 10, but really has been progressing. I think he's 19 or 20. So they've got some good young kids.
And that's good to see for Ottawa.
Because
it's scary right now. So it's good to see they have some young guys kind of almost either ready to come up or almost ready to come up that are looking good.
2 years ago, they were a goal away from advancing to the Cup Finals.
Yeah.
And it's just sad to kind of see the team and how the Hoffman and Carlson thing progressed and everything that came from that. It seemed, and fans already aren't going to Ottawa games. That's kind of the problem. It's kind of like the Carolina of Canada or the Florida of Canada. Obviously they're getting probably double the attendance that some of these southern teams are getting, but that's not quite good enough.
Right.
Obviously for a Canadian market.
Right.
The owner wants a new stadium.
Well, and they're not winning games.
That's the thing. How do you sell a new stadium when you don't have a team to put in it?
That's the thing. I think everyone kind of feels like they overachieved in that playoff run, and they very well may have a little bit. They look good, but to get to where they did,
they certainly overachieved.
So
to go that deep in the playoffs, but they're not as bad as they were last year, and that's kind of the problem. I think Erik Karlsson had a tough time coming back. Duchesne was adapting. I think Duchesne is a bright spot, and I kind of hope they hang on to him, but I want to see him win one.
Well, he had a good year. He played 68 games, had 49 points, 23 goals, 26 assists.
And he started out
That's a key piece.
Cold. He was so cold when he first went there. Didn't hardly play the system. They play a very strict structural game, and it's hard for guys to slot in. Case in point, Bobby Ryan.
Yeah, it's not a pretty game. It's not for finesse players. This isn't a team that plays that way.
It's not a team that sets up a lot of shots either. And that's the kind of thing you notice with Bobby Ryan. Even if he shoots at 13%, he took 140 shots.
Right.
Or 170 shots. So it's not. They're not a really fun team, at least for guys like you and me to watch. But these young kids could change that around. And Cody Ceci is a restricted free agent. I do believe they're going to hang on to him too. Another young piece, another core guy in their defense. And there's really nobody noticeable or all that sticks out all that much as an unrestricted free agent. And you just kind of wonder what this team is going to do. As it stands, it is June 30th, and free agency starts tomorrow. And they're supposed to maybe they announce a trade tomorrow. Maybe Carlson and Smith go to Vegas.
So you think we're going to see Ottawa being shooken up regardless kind of what happens here? We're going to see some shakeup coming up in this free agency.
I would almost hope so for the team because I don't know how you salvage this. The Hoffman thing, how badly he got fleeced on that trade. That's embarrassing. And that's embarrassing not only to the GMs and ownerships but to the fan base. So I say that as a Florida Panthers fan, and we can't sell out games. But anyhow, it seems like it's going to be a pretty interesting offseason for the Ottawa Senators. And with that said, we look forward to their moves, what they're going to go along with.
What about Craig Anderson?
Oh, boy.
Last year. Not his best year. Pretty shaky year for him.
I'm glad you saved me there. No, Craig Anderson, every year he's had or every other year, he's got a bounce back year.
Yeah.
Bad year, good year, bad year, good year. We looked at that right before the podcast started. That was kind of funny because it's like literally
he's had some great years.
He's had some fantastic
real good years. This year, his save percentage was .898.
Below 900.
Below 900. He's 36 years old, but he's had some .941.
He's due for a 920. He's due for a 920.
We'll see.
And
something else. I mean, their special teams.
Horrible.
They were 27th in the league in both penalty kill and power play.
Which is
got to improve upon that.
That's indicative as to why they did so bad.
Right. Nothing was clicking for them.
No.
Unfortunately.
No. And so it's sad to see. You really hope that they are able to salvage the season, that they're able to keep that pick out of the top 5 for Colorado next year, because that could set up another team, better than any potential Duchesne situation would have if he would have stayed in Colorado. So we knew this was going to be a bit of a short one today. This was a tough team to get excited about, and I'm kind of glad I'm not a Senators fan. It seems like this team doesn't really know where they're going. Their ownership kind of sucks. Everybody hates their owner. Everybody hates the GM, and it's been a tough search. We try to do teams that are fun, that we have a lot to talk about. And then we have to sprinkle in kind of one of these it's kind of depressing.
This is the disclaimer here.
That's right. I mean, this one wasn't a ton of fun to do, but
we knew it was gonna be a shorter one. Like you said, there's not a whole lot to say. They need to rebuild. Let's hope they do it.
Rebuild and get 3 first-round picks.
We'll see if they keep Karlsson and Ryan. Those are kind of the questions here. So
Drew Doughty just signed for $8 million, or no,
10?
8 years, $11 million.
$11 million.
$88 million.
So if Karlsson goes elsewhere, what does he sign?
Next year.
How much money does he get?
How much money is Erik Karlsson going to get? That's the real question. Or what if Ottawa comes out of left field here and signs Erik Karlsson 8 times 12, July 1?
They might.
Tune in, everybody.
We don't know.
Thank you for tuning in to the show today. We love doing these, and we'll continue to pump out hockey content all off season long. Have a great day.